Good.
Okay. Good evening. My name is Danny Colligan, and I'm the president of Stanford Citizen at Work. First of all, I want to thank everybody for attending tonight's event. We have a very special guest tonight, author and journalist Reese Erlich. He will be discussing his new book, Conversations with Terrorists. Following Mr. Erlich's presentation, I will moderate a question and answer session. So, a bit about Reese. Reese Erlich is a journalist and author whose books include Dateline Havana, The Iran Agenda, and Target Iraq. Erlich reports regularly for National Public Radio, Marketplace Radio, Latino USA, Radio Deutsche Welle, Australian Broadcasting Corp Radio, and Canadian Broadcasting Corp Radio. He also writes for the San Francisco Chronicle, St. Petersburg Times, and Christian Science Monitor. Erlich has won numerous journalism awards, including the 1996 Chicago International Film Festival's Silver Hugo for investigative reporting, and first and second place in the Media Alliance's 1993 Project Bay Area Censored Competition. For the year 2000, he received a major grant from the California Council for the Humanities to produce radio documentaries on California jazz and blues. Erlich is listed in Who's Who in America and Who's Who in the Media. Erlich's most recent book, Conversations with Terrorists, examines how the United States has dealt with terrorist threats since 2001, suggesting that by labeling all opponents as terrorists, the government has, from a practical perspective, quote, rendered the term terrorism meaningless. Please welcome Reese Erlich.
Thanks very much. I'm very pleased to be here. We were over in the wrong dining hall with 4 people, and so I'm particularly glad to see all of you here. I was in Kabul, Afghanistan last year, and I was working with a colleague, a fellow journalist named Najibullah, an old friend, and we were going to go from Kabul to Jalalabad. Jalalabad is a city close to the Pakistani border, due more or less north and east of Kabul. And the day we were going to go out there, we dressed up in traditional Afghan clothing with the baggy pants and the shirt that goes over the top of the pants, because the danger on the road was that it was you could get stopped by Afghan police and detained, or you could get stopped by insurgents and kidnapped. So if you looked like a local and we were in an old beat-up car, it was much more likely to get through. And Najib told me, he said, Mr. Reese, the world will be absolutely safe today. It has not been bombed in 4 days. So I was heartened by that news, and off we went. And when we got to Jalalabad, I had a chance to interview some former opium farmers. And opium growing is still very common in Afghanistan. And contrary to most of the information that we get here in the United States, the opium trade is not controlled by the evil Taliban. It's controlled by the U.S. allies. And the story that I did that aired on public radio and in the Progressive magazine detailed that, and I go into much greater detail in the book. But basically, the process is the opium farmers grow the poppy, they sell to middlemen who are protected by the local police. Those in turn, it's turned into heroin. It goes on up the chain all the way to the Karzai cabinet. The very top leaders of the Afghan government are the people who control the drug trade. How do I know this? Well, I went to the United Nations in Kabul. There's an office of the UNODC, UN Office on Drugs and Crime. They're the official body for the UN that tracks the heroin trade in Afghanistan. They do the same for cocaine in Colombia and so on. And I asked a question that apparently no other American journalist had ever asked to the head UNODC guy. I said, who controls the drug trade? He said, well, wait a minute. And he sits at his computer and he taps out, and, he says, well, let's see. The drug trade counts as X billions of dollars. Well, it appears that the Taliban controls less than 3%. And I said, well, who does control the drug trade then?